Well, good evening, folks. Hope you're well. A relatively brief video. Thank you for the kind comments, and it has been pointed out to me that my YouTube channel has been already suppressed and is being restricted by some bright spark in Google. I've no idea why, quite frankly, because I haven't been at all naughty. But heaven forbid, the other day, did I not mention our ethnic brethren being low on the IQ scores, which is a straight fact. But, you know, it's the same old, isn't it? So much for YouTube being free enterprise and open speech, etc. And look what they've done. They continue to do this, but I'm not deterred by it, because viewing figures, although are very nice to get a few million, it's quality, not quantity, and I'll continue saying what I want to say on the internet so long as they don't take my channel down, which is always a threat in the back scenes. But they try to demoralize people by knocking off their viewing figures, which are wholly inaccurate. Just because my viewing figures that say it's low doesn't necessarily mean that's true, because there are lies, damn lies, and then there are statistics. And knowing Google to be liars that they are in many ways, control freaks of YouTube, I'm just disgraced, not disgraced, that's the wrong word, disgusted at the way that Google have taken over the world when it comes to the computers. And well, whose fault is that? The general public just let those powers to be just get on with what they want to do. We are actually impotent when it comes to this sort of thing. And maybe there will be an alternative to YouTube which is going to teach them a lesson. But I doubt it. YouTube is too big. So I'll continue to do my videos. I noticed on the news tonight in the UK, on Sunday, today, 30th, that we have rubber dinghies now arriving on the shores of UK in Margate, with asylum seekers. Well, what a surprise. Do you think they're going to be turned back and towed back to Calais from where they came? It's just another way. I want to know what happens to these 6 or 7 adult males that are on this dinghy, and I want to see an example set of putting them on an aeroplane straight away and taking them back to Charles de Gaulle and dumping them off on the French, because obviously the French are delinquent in maintaining. They're quick enough to fish for our fish within a few miles of our shores, aren't they, the frogs? Anyway, I'm not a great fan of France, as you might have noticed. In fact, I'm not a great fan of being anything to do with Europe. The sooner we get out of the common market, as it should have been, the better. And when you look at what our country has, or had before it joined the common market, and Thatcher and Heath wrecked our country, it wouldn't take too much for us to get back on our feet. But it's not the way it is. We are now a nation of shopkeepers, sadly. And our NHS is probably the biggest attraction to entice foreigners to come over the shores here, because we do have the best National Health Service in the world, and our baby mortality rate is one of the best in the world. Our babies that our ladies have survive, to the extent they survive to be long enough just to get discharged out of hospital. A lot of babies die in hospital in childbirth, etc. Having been born, they die very quickly for some strange reason. America has got an abysmal rate of infant mortality during maternity periods. And, well, I'm not surprised. They stuff them full of inoculations the moment they're born, and they get respiratory distress, and they have autistic. 1 in 7 babies coming out of an American hospital was guaranteed to be autistic in some way. And that's before it starts school. We're talking newborns. It's quite a disgrace that parents don't seem to have any say in what happens to their offspring, because truth be known, the babies, your children, do not belong to you. You think they're your children, but they're not your children. They are simply little future tax-paying units. And your baby will be allocated a serial number. Oh, did I say that? National insurance number. In which case that baby won't shift into it throughout its adulthood. That number will be tracked with that baby, and every time they pay income tax, you see, the moment they're born, they're clocking up how much your baby's going to make the system. Quite disgraceful. This is what we're up against. But they are going to smash up the National Health Service. I worked in the National Health Service for a long time, and I watched it slowly decay over time. I watched the wards decay. I watched the influx of immigrants pouring in as patients, taking up bed space when they haven't paid a bean national insurance to come into this NHS of our hospitals, occupying beds and jumping queues. Well, you mustn't be like that. Don't be so. It's nothing to do with mustn't be like that. But we must put people first who have paid into the system. Otherwise, we become a charity, for goodness sake. And they've replaced the nurses on the wards with nursing auxiliaries, and with due respect to them. But the qualified nurses now all hide behind these nurses' stations, filling in paperwork and computers all the time, because the NHS has become scared shitless, quite frankly, of litigation. And the notes have got to be up to date. Everything has to go onto the computer. And the nurses are spending time data inputting when they should be spending time next to the patients, providing patient care. But that patient care is now provided by nursing auxiliaries and very cheap people, often from foreign shores, who can barely speak English to the British patients, who expect that the people nursing them would understand and have some empathy. And it's just a disgrace what is happening now. Our A&E staff are having to be faced every day and every night, particularly at night, with maniacs who are drunk, aggressive, criminal, in many of them are criminals, coming in high on all sorts of substances, and if it's not that, they're just the patients who are rolling in, pissed as a fart, and staggering, and expect to be treated and cared for by staff who are under such pressure. And when you get people phoning an ambulance because they've drunk too much and they're sat depressed on their longboats and they're threatening suicide, well, look, do us all a favour, just do the suicide, okay? Because there's many people go in and out of hospitals having repeatedly attempted suicide for cries of help, because what they've done in this country, UK, is they've shut all the psychiatric hospitals, and 2/3 of the people pouring into A&E are psychiatric nuts, and they belong in psychiatric hospitals to get the care they need, and they're not going to get it from a quick there, all is well, now go home. And believe me, they're not just kicked out, these people, after they've been treated. They get an ambulance, or an ambulance will take them back to where they picked them up, or get the taxi for them. And it's just mad. It's an absolute madhouse, the NHS. And yet it used to be the best health service in the world. It is when it works. But now what they're doing is they're hoping to destroy our NHS. And then they can say, well, it's costing the taxpayer so much money, we'll have to smash it up and sell the profitable, functioning parts off to big, huge American multinationals or other companies to run as a business concern. And all the other essentials out there will be farmed off to in the community, as they keep calling it. Again, more workload for the community nurses. And I promised myself I wasn't going to go on about the NHS, but it is dear to my heart. And it's just another breaking the back of Britain, isn't it, really? We were famous, weren't we, in Britain, for our amazing health service, our courts, the way we treat prisoners, and all we're doing now really is a prisoner in prison has more rights nowadays. I'm sorry, but allowing prisoners mobile phone access in their cells because they'll create less trouble if they're allowed to talk to their loved ones outside. Well, we just become more and more and more of a soft touch, don't we, really? Well, who's paying for them if they're not working, these prisoners, which they shouldn't be? If I ruled the world, folks, they would be in a cell on their own, 3 meals a day, a little bit of exercise, and stuck back in their cells. Because if you're not such a bad crim and you go in, you'll come out a mega crim because of what you'll learn by association. You see, if you have a punnet, a box of pretty well okay blackberries, but there is one that's got mould on it in the bottom right hand corner sitting there, would you buy it? No, you wouldn't, because you know that by the time a couple of days goes by, the whole box becomes mouldy, just like the rotten one that was there. And that's the same analogy in prison. We should classify our prisoners, and I don't think anybody should be in prison for debt. I think the only people that should be in prison for anything or have their liberty retarded and taken away from them would be those people who have killed or hurt someone or terrorized somebody. The rest people can be tagged. There is absolutely no reason to send people to prison for financial criminal activity, none. Just simply tag them and let them be on their way. What is the point of keeping somebody who's been caught embezzling in prison, really? They're not going to go outside and beat up a nanny or granny, are they, and rip them off and take their money or cause anybody any harm. I think only violent, nasty bastards and murderers should be in prison. Okay, and that'll free up a lot of space in order to get them off the streets that are out there and there's currently no room. Talk about overcrowding in our British prisons. Well, they're full of people who have done relatively minor offences in the grand scale of life compared to what the governments have done to people. And as I said, you can tag these people and let them be on their way and put them to work outside in the community, maybe picking up the shit that's all over the sides of our roads and between the lanes of our motorways now, where there's just bottles of plastic bottles and rubbish littering our streets. I would put them on work details, never mind sitting in their cells playing cards and watching Sky TV and playing on the internet, or nowadays phoning their loved ones on their provided phones. An absolute disgrace. And it's a joke. It's harder to live outside prison than it is inside, it seems. But the worst thing about prison, of course, is losing your liberty. But for half these people, if prison was truly that bad, you wouldn't get half the people in prison that are in there in prison. Because once would be enough, but many of these people in prisons are repeat offenders again and again and again. Because it's nice, they get 3 square meals a day, they get medical care, they get dental care, absolute cush. Absolutely cushy, isn't it, really, when you think about it? And they've got massive drug problems in our prisons now in the UK. The drugs are getting in somehow. Oh yeah, baby. Well, there we are. I would make sure visitors arrive and they're only seen, there's no visible contact. And you would make sure that you, like America, pick up the phone and talk through a glass. And there's no touching, nothing, no communication apart from verbal and visual through a glass pane when you do have visitors. Oh, for sure. And you'd see the population of prison go down if that's the way they treated people. Bringing back the death penalty is another bone of contention. And I see no reason why not. Because that would concentrate their minds beautifully. And, you know, it's not civilized, is it, to have the death penalty? Well, we still deal with America, and they have a death penalty. Saudi Arabia have a death penalty. And we still deal and have dealings with Saudi Arabia and America and other countries who have got a death penalty. But in Britain, oh no. Well, you watch. As the number of street beheadings goes up, the number of knife crimes in our country is rising exponentially. The streets will be exactly what Enoch Powell said, rivers of blood sooner or later, due to the invasion that we're having to face in this country of foreigners who wield swords and knives and think nothing of it. Oh, that's probably another reason my videos will be suppressed again, because I've mentioned that M word. Well, I haven't mentioned the M word, but I hope you get my meaning. And this is why I said in my previous videos I've had the best of times and the worst of times, and I'm going through the worst of times now. Because I've had the best of times. And I don't see any best of times coming along for the new recruits being born nowadays. I really don't. I pity them. I absolutely pity young people, because they never know. They'll never get to know how truly spectacular Britain used to be. Because all we've left them, what have we done? What have we left them? What have our government done to our country? They've wrecked it with a wrecking ball called EU membership and liberalisation. Liberalism is a mental disease. If only people could see this. And we are headed towards a fascist dictatorship so fast you're not going to know what's happened. Well, the millennials won't know what's happened. But well, to be fair, as they often say, they won't see it happening because they've been born amongst it for most of the time, and it's just progressively getting worse and worse. You think we live in a democracy? We do not live in a democracy whatsoever. And communism is just around the corner. So communism is socialism in a hurry. That's what communism is, folks. I've said it before. And we have to realise is that, in Shakespeare's own words, be true to yourself. To thine own self be true. You have to look after you and yours and do the best you can with the tools available. And as long as you've done that, folks, you'll end up with happy life and happy children and guide them. But sadly, many parents don't have the luxury of being able to spend time with their children because they have to earn 2 incomes to make a living to supply for the children. And nowadays, with Jemima having 2 daddies or Becky having 2 mummies, and this twisted society now, our morals have gone down the toilets, our standards have gone down the toilets. It's quite all right, but we mustn't mention, must we, the complete destruction of our society and the bastardization of our population in this country. It's quite disgraceful. Why don't we seem to take a look across the water and see what we are headed for? Not we could have, we're going to have it. It's just show you what we're headed for. Go and look at Sweden, where the rapes have gone through the roof. Go and look at Germany and what's happened to Germany, this great nation that used to be. Holland is a lost cause. Belgium are bad. Forget it. Well, we are a hair's breadth away, folks, from this, and we stand idly by. It's like getting a cane at school and you whack a kid into it. You got anything to say? Whack. Yes, sir. Can I please have some more? Whack. That's what they used to make the kids say at public schools. Yes, sir. Can I please have another? Well, why not? It seems to be the mantra of people in this bloody country of ours. We're so liberal now, it's making me puke. And on top of that, we got an internet that is heavily monitored in case you say something out of line, and it royally pisses me off. But I promised not to get too upset about it, and I can't really do much about it, folks. I truly can't, as much as I would, but we've left it too little too late, and we are headed for disaster. We don't seem to have a parliament now full of educated people who have Britain's self-interest. They have their own interest at heart. And I still maintain that we're not going to Brexit. I want to eat my words, but I fear I might be right. Just maybe there will be another vote for Brexit. I can smell a rat somewhere, and I wouldn't put it past these shysters to try and overturn the original vote that we should Brexit. They'll find some excuse, some clause, some article, and, well, just to make sure if we're that confident everybody wants out. Well, in any event, we've already had the vote. The decision should have been made and cast in stone, and we should have just left. No deal is better than any deal is better than no deal. I'm sorry, but there's not going to be a deal, and we're not going to pay anybody. We're simply coming out and shutting our borders, and you can get lost. And if you get any truck from the French, that's fine. Stick a massive tax on Citroens and Renaults. If you get any trucks from Germans or any hassle from the Germans, okay, BMWs. Britain is the biggest importer of BMWs in the world out of Germany. We'll just have to put a mega tax on if the Germans under Juncker continue to be a bunch of bastards towards Britain. Juncker better shut his trap, this Nazi. And his father was a Nazi. Well, he's in good company, I suppose, with those members of the royal family in Buckingham Palace who all come from Germany and the Nazis, because that's what they are. Prince Philip's relatives and family and father and grandfather was a Nazi. No two ways about it, and try denying that. Bring it on. Saxon Coburg ghosts. Look at the funerals they attended, these people. Prince Philip. Isn't it amazing that these people live to a ripe old age? Well, they do, you know. Henry Kissinger, I mean, he should have bought the farm years ago, that war criminal. And yet here he is. He's just like Jabba the Hutt in a wheelchair being pushed around. 90 odd, 91, isn't he now, Henry Kissinger? He can't be far off. And you got look at the royals. They're kicking on a hell of a lot. And our queen, isn't she 193? Prince Philip amazingly gets a new hip a couple of years ago. Or a couple of years ago he got a new hip. What a waste of time. Why don't you just wait a few months and hopefully he'll peg it. But they know that the royals are going to live to a ripe old age. Just look at the length of time they live compared to the general populace of this country. There is some super science and some super medicine they have access to. I know what it is, and so do you. They don't get poisoned like we do with pharmaceuticals, folks. They have the proper stuff. They don't need to take drugs to get better and be germ-free because they use super duper science that I talked about in previous videos. Well, that's my little rant over with, folks. I said it was going to be quite short because I got a stack of things to do, but I'll bid you goodbye and go take a chill pill, and I'll catch you maybe, I can't make any promises, tomorrow, but please do subscribe, put your thumbs ups, and bear with me for this ranting video but it has to be said. And if my video channel gets banned again, it'll get banned again. No thanks to anyone, but thank you for your time in watching this, and have a lovely, lovely evening, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Take care.